We all kind of inherit this mind, guys. It builds up in us over time, from when we're born till when we die. We are learning, growing, experiencing, thinking, creating memories, projecting into the future, looking back at the past, in the present moment, whatever. Life is unfolding in the present moment, of course, but like a lot of us live through our minds, through the filter of our minds, through the lens of our minds. And that's what we're creating out of. And a lot of people don't truly understand how that works, like fundamentally at its root. And it's not until you begin to unravel those layers, until you start seeing through the layers of your conditioned self, till you reach your most true, authentic self. Because the authentic self doesn't exist in the mind. It's impossible. You know, your mind, it can be like witty, it can be cunning, manipulative, it can be all of those things, but it's never authentic. Your creativity, your true magnetism, authenticity, creativity, it spawns out of the you that's behind the mind. And then your mind creates thoughts out of that. And then you're like perpetuating that, you're projecting that through words and through deeds and whatever you're doing, you know? But the mind itself just like creates more mind stuff. It's all it knows how to do. And it's a dual thing. It's based in duality. That's why non-duality is telling you to get outside of your mind, to tap into your non-dual self where God truly exists, at least for yourself. The part of you that's God, the part of you that is self, the grand self, the only self that really exists, the merged self with all the selves, with all the energy, the platform, the source. But when you come to understanding the mind, when you're trying to get to this place where you're like, oh, I see it for what it is, when you've spent time, because it requires some introspection, it requires some contemplation, some prayer, some meditation, it requires that. When you come to that place, now all of a sudden, your truest self steps forward. The mind recedes into the background. Very often it'll stay still, it'll stay rooted in itself, out of where it spawns. And yourself, your awareness, your consciousness is what's observing and initiating and creating in life, in your life, merged with the co-creation of the other lives. And we're so conditioned. We believe that these thoughts are us. We believe that our mind is us, when in reality it's not. It's just an aspect of us in the physical. It doesn't exist that way in the great beyond, guys. Like, you don't have this mind that you're thinking through and you're doing stuff and you're like thinking thoughts, individual thoughts and words and language and stuff like that. You're beyond language. You're beyond the mind because you're merged. You're beyond feelings even. You know, we can't even describe it with words accurately, guys. They can understand us, but we can't understand them. The beings and the ancestors and the souls that exist in the great beyond that are watching over us all, that are all closer to the source. But when we come in, we have to have the mind to interact with the physical world. This is the knowledge that was bestowed to man, Adam and Eve, and she ate of the tree of knowledge. And then man split into two. They split themselves into two, mankind did, through this knowledge. And that story is trying to get you back to your authenticity, to your truest self. It's like there was a time where we were communing purely in nature outside of the mind. We weren't thinking, we were just reacting and existing. And then we started thinking, and then we got lost in our minds over time. Lost, identified with our minds. We think our thoughts are us. We think our conditioned parts of us are us. So when you're growing up, you might be born into a certain religion. You're born into a certain ethnicity and background. You're born into a certain language, you know, depending on where you're born and where you live. You're born into a certain culture, and you take on these things over time. You're learning them, right? Trial and error. Your parents are teaching you. Your friends are teaching you, right? By interaction, you're learning all the time. You're a sponge. And then you get to this point where you're like an adolescent and you grow into an adult, and now you like have built up this hardwire of what you think is you in your mind, and that's what's constantly projecting your reality, but you don't know that you're really doing it because you haven't stepped outside of the mind to recognize it. You may have glimpses into it of what it's like to like be truly centered and aware and like notice the mind, but it doesn't like take root, that stillness. You're like, that was kind of weird. Let me get back to thinking again, you know? And so like you think your religion, oh no, what would happen if I lost my religion? What would happen, you know, like, oh, I'm Christian, right? I'm Islamic, right? I'm Buddhist, right? Like, oh no. And then if you step back and like look at that for a moment, it might even scare you. You're like, whoa, I'm not really that at my core. My core, my beingness exists beyond, outside of a religion that's been given to me, that's been passed down to me, that I've bought into. And it's fine, guys, if you want to attach yourself to your religion, you can do that. All I'm asking is that you kind of see beyond it a little bit. Think outside of the box. Enable that critical thinking, that critical contemplation, that introspection. Because we're too lost in these parts of ourselves. And we've bought into too many stories that have been fed to us through time, our time as we grow up. You watch media, you know, you engage on social media, you watch TV and movies, and it teaches you, oh, this is how life should be. You watch some romantic comedies and you believe all of that sappy stuff. You know, yeah, I love a great story. I love some sappy shit. I like to laugh at it and, you know, whatever. But life doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to be like the weak male that's like, I hope that she likes me, or the girl that's like, oh, I hope I find my partner that completes myself. And you're like projecting these like inherited expectations that people have given to you. And you're like, oh, that's just how it is. It's like, no, that's not how it is. But because everyone is tapped into the collective mental delusion, that's how it is to them. And the chosen people that wake up out of it, the aware ones, the awakened ones, the truth tellers, they're trying to tell you, hey man, it's not like this. Maybe you have like that needle in your eye. You're trying to take that needle, that thorn in your eye out. You're like, something's off. I don't know what it is. That's your mind. That's the mental prison. That's what the matrix is, guys. The mental prison that we've been indoctrinated into. And there's many layers to this. Every single aspect of your mental consciousness is just layered, thought on top of thought, and then it's penetrated and impregnated and perpetuated by belief. You can have a thought, but if you don't really believe it, it's not as powerful or potent in creating. It'll still create. Every thought has the spark of creativity in it to manifest in reality. But when your belief, your soul, pushes the belief onto it, then it creates more powerfully. And it's not going to happen all the time in real time, like immediately for you guys, right? It might show up in a week or two or a month or a year, but you're still putting it out there. All of your thoughts are things. Why? I've heard this a lot, you know, like thoughts are things, thoughts are tangible, but how can they be tangible if they're so fleeting, if they're so etheric, if they're so just like, you can't really put your finger on it, you can't hold a thought, you know? And the reason is because the root of thought is based in the physical. So if I come into the world, I'm born a baby, and I'm interacting with stuff, I learn what an apple is, I learn what a toy is, I learn what a tree is, I learn who my mom and my dad are. All of those objects exist in the physical. And then I'm attaching words to them, and those words are physical representations, thought representations of a physical aspect of this 3D reality that we're living in. And that's all I can know, honestly. That's all I can create for myself in this place that I'm existing, in this world, on this earth. That's all I can know. And all of my thoughts are based on me in relation to all of these other tangible things. And then the mind can also abstract a little bit, but that's also based in thought. Why? If I do an abstraction, let's just say a simple one, right? Like there's the earth, there's the physical, there's the scene, and then what your mind does with the duality is it naturally wants to go to the opposite. So what is the opposite of the seen, of the physical? It's the unseen and the unphysical. But the unseen and the unphysical aren't tangible. But you're projecting that opposite because it's based on the physical, do you see? So it's like if the earth is this, then like space and like the black hole is the opposite, you know? Even though those are real things, if we didn't know what those things were, we'd be imagining them. We'd be speculating on them, you know? And so that's why it's like people have a hard time reconciling what God is, because God exists in the unseen mostly. This physical is just one little sliver of what God is. There are many physical worlds and places and timelines and all this different stuff maybe, right? But we can't know that. We're planted here, man. We have to be immersed here to learn through this life, to experience this life and then go back. So these physical things, these thought constructs build up as layers. We have them in religions and mythologies and stuff as archetypes. And I've addressed this in other videos before, but there's so many different archetypes that are co-creating the chosen one's archetype, you know, Hercules and Achilles and Krishna and Vishnu and Rama, and, you know, like there's Chinese ones and there's like, you know, Norse ones, right? Odin and Thor and all those different ones, right? Like man gods, right? Everything is like a personification of a deity, you know, Apollo and Zeus and whatever, right? But they're not really human. Well, we create them, we make them human because it's easier for us to relate to those things. So all these different layered archetypes, you know, the angels and the beings and the ancestors and you know the consciousnesses that people are feeding into these beliefs of all of these different archetypes. Like in Hinduism, you have Kali Ma, you know, you have Lakshmi, you have Shiva. All of these different personification archetypes are being fed, and God doesn't really give a shit which one you believe in. If you believe in the 12 gods of the Greeks and the Romans, or if you believe in the one true God of like the Jews and like the Zoroastrians and whoever, and the Christians. It doesn't care. It's just like, it's like, I appreciate that you take time out of your day to give thanks to this aspect that I am. And now what you are in your mind, your mental constructs, feed that stuff, man. All of the stories that you've ever inherited, all of the stuff that happened in the past, brings you now, brings you to now. And you can, and you're seeing your life through your past lens. It can't project from the future because the future hasn't happened yet. But you think you're your past, come current, right? I'm doing this job in the past couple of years and I'm still doing it now, and that's what I am, my profession. And people say, what do you do? Who are you? You're like, I'm a teacher. And it's like, that's not what you are. You're a human. And you're not even your name. That's like the most core. Out of your name comes all of these ideas about you. When you let go of even your name, now you're tapping into your truest self. You're just human. You're not even human. There's no word to describe this entity that you are. You are beingness incarnated in the physical, temporarily taking on a physical suit. And we build up these layers of conditioning, these beliefs, you know. I'm American, you know, I'm European, I'm like whatever ethnicity or nationality. And you think those things are you, and everyone is looking at everyone else based on these little segments that we're compartmentalizing ourselves with this conditioning. And we make it real. We think it's real. Well, this is how it is, right? He's black, he's Hispanic, he's white, right? Like that's what he is, right? And yes, there's no arguing with what we label these things, but you also, because through those labels you start objectifying people. You're reducing them to nothing. They're nothing but a label. He's nothing but he's black, and that's why there's racism, and you know, Hispanic and Asian and whatever racist, you know, it doesn't matter like really what ethnicity or background you are. There's racism all over. So it's like, but you're objectifying a human being that is much greater than just some simple aspect that they are of themselves. You just don't like them because they're different. Why? Because the conditioned self puts you in a box. It's a structure. It's tangible. It's a dogma. It becomes firm to you. It becomes like a part of you that you can touch. And because you're constantly looking at all of these things through that lens, everything becomes physical. Even the human that is even outside of the physical becomes super physical to you. They're just this physical thing. And so you lose compassion, you lose consideration for them, even for nature, even for animals and stuff, right? Because it's just a means to an end for you. I'm here, I gotta eat, I gotta go, you know, to work, I gotta survive, and everything else is just in my way. And you're constantly like looking through that lens of your conditioned self that buys into all of these things that aren't really true. And like on this channel, I talk about all these different like saints and prophets and chosen ones and truth tellers, you know, like Ramana Maharshi and Eckhart Tolle and like Jesus and Krishna and Buddha and Lao Tzu, right? And Yogananda and all these different ones. But I rarely mention someone who is like amazing at distilling the conditioned self, and that's Krishnamurti, Jiddu Krishnamurti, who was like in the earliest 20th century, in the early 20th century. He would go around and give these talks, and he's just talking about your conditioned self constantly, because he knew the number one most important, the number one biggest impediment to you realizing your true self is your conditioned mind that you're projecting yourself into constantly. You know, he has these books called On Freedom, Total Freedom. He's like, when you're free of the mind, you become yourself. And he's like way more philosophical. He doesn't buy into the religion. He doesn't buy into like the woo-woo new age shit that we talk about today. You know, beingness and, you know, shadow work and, you know, I'm a star seed and whatever. You know, if you believe that, that's fine. That's true for yourself, fine. But he's like way more philosophical about it. And like people would ask him questions and he'll sit down and he'll answer them. And they're like, yo, what's this? And he's like, well, let's go into it. Let's unravel the mind. Let's penetrate the layers of the mind. You have to like look at it one by one by one by one. And you're not going to look at all of them because they're infinite, really. There's thousands of them, millions of them that exist. You can't. There's no time for it. We're limited by that. But when you start noticing some of them, you start noticing the pattern and the root of all of them. And so when you find that root, it like plucks out all of those thoughts, that all of those branches of thoughts that come out of that one root. You pluck that root out and now it just collapses, it falls, and you're left with yourself. Yourself emerges. Your mind, your conditioned self has receded into the background, and now your beingness comes forward and you start acting and interacting out of that. Your mind is still there and it's more potent and ready to be used because it's not just defeated and like disenfranchised and like just constantly unraveling and like spinning and you know, it's like, oh, I need to do this, cool, I'm on it. It pops up. And you're not like lost in thought. You're not like, oh, I can't fall asleep because I can't stop thinking. You know, you're not always stressed. You're not always worried because you see through that illusion. And so Krishnamurti is like your essential freedom, your peace, your bliss lies outside of thought, outside of your conditioned self. And you have to unravel the many layers that are the mind. And the easiest and most potent way to do that is through meditation. You know, and if you're not going to sit and meditate and be still, then at least like think about it, contemplate on it, meditate, like they say, on it, but it's not like the true meditation, right? The stillness. But you know, you, like meditate on it is another word for contemplation, introspection. And the prayer too, because through the prayer, you find your true voice, the voice that you're projecting. It's not like this like unhinged, I can't control my thoughts. They're just constantly popping up, and I have no control over like what they say and what they do. No, when you're directing your thoughts, when you're praying to God, for example, or speaking to somebody in you're channeling yourself and speaking to somebody in the moment, that is your truest voice. It isn't encumbered by thought. It just flows out of you from the heart. You know, like you know how they say, you know, speak from your heart. It's like that, without the filter and like worries of your mind, because the mind likes to be based in the fear, because it has to exist in fear, because it needs the opposite of the love. So you have love that colors all of the good stuff, and you have the fear that colors all of the bad stuff, and they're all just different shades of gray of each of those aspects. You know, anxiety is one aspect of fear, and like depression is one aspect of fear, you know, like a manifestation of it, and like panic attack and like stress and whatever. It's bad. We know it's bad. Good and bad. And then the good is like the joy and the laughter and the bliss and the love and the peace and the harmony and the, you know, whatever. It's so align yourself with the good. Get past your conditioned self. Look at your thoughts, man. Like When you're out and about, you see some stranger and normally you label them. Maybe inside you're like a racist piece of shit, right? You're like, I don't know, I just hate everybody. White supremacy, yay. And you see somebody and you label them as like a piece of shit. Notice that. But the thing is, like, those people, a lot of them, they're so far gone with like the hate has like utterly corrupted their hearts that they wouldn't even entertain the idea of looking at themselves because they think they're already fine as they are. And they're going to get what's coming to them. They're going to get that karmic retribution. God accounts for everything, man. You're not escaping any of it. God is asking you through your suffering to wake up and realize what your mind is that's making you suffer. You see, like, your mind is what makes you suffer. Your truest self doesn't suffer, man. Your truest self is always tapped into itself. It's always blissed out. You know, your truest self is always authentic and magnetic and charismatic and creative and lovely, you know, and feels nothing but love and compassion and empathy for others and even yourself. You don't like turn on yourself, man. You don't like create this story about how much of a piece of shit you are. That's part of your layered conditioning too, guys. These lies that you're telling yourself and you're buying into. Like all of your thoughts about yourself are fundamentally incorrect. At least the negative ones are. You are infinite. You are powerful. You are awesome. But you've lost touch with that part of yourself a long time ago. You learned somewhere, you adopted somewhere this conditioned aspect of yourself as truth. And it's not. It's all a lie. That's why I keep saying eliminate the lie. Eliminate it. The lie that is the devil in you. The demon, the little, you know how there's like the little angel and demon, and like your angel's like your conscience that's like saying, hey man, oh, do this, it's good. Go for it, man. You can do it. It's encouraging. It wants you to like participate in life. And the negative aspects like, no, I can't possibly do this. No, I'm nothing. I'm a piece of shit. Oh, why does everybody like hate me? Why does the world suck? Why am I such a victim? And they don't even recognize their own victimhood, but it's just like they are victims. They've made themselves weak through this negative mental aspect of themselves that they believe. They've given their power away. And you're constantly giving your power away, guys. Every waking moment that you're sitting and thinking and believing that those thoughts, those aspects of like what your mind is are you're giving your power away. By thinking that you're Christian or Islamic or Buddhist or whatever, you're giving your power to that religion. I can't possibly exist outside of religion. I can't possibly just bypass it and go straight to God. No, I have to have a middleman like Muhammad or Jesus or the Buddha. And that's fine. God doesn't care how you access him. You can go through the middleman, that's fine. But those middlemen, those truth tellers like Jesus and Muhammad and Buddha, they were trying to tell you that you can be like them and access that stuff. It's not only through them. Those are lies that were added onto the religions by the unknowers of that truth. They couldn't tell because they were limited in their own consciousness.